Sophie Grégoire Trudeau has spent much of her life in the spotlight as a television host, a volunteer, and in politics. But besides her family, one thing she has championed is the importance of mental health.
And she delves deeper into her own challenges and also calls on some of the world's biggest and best experts in her part memoir, part self-exploration book, Closer Together, Knowing Ourselves, Loving Each Other. Sophie Grégoire Trudeau, welcome to CP24 Breakfast. Appreciate you being here this morning.
Thank you. I'm an early riser, so it's good for me.
It's good for you. And this is an interesting book. You know, what it was, its title here is Self-Exploration Book. You know, there's a bit of self-help in here as well. And I'm really curious, from what I've read of this book, and I only got it last night, so I haven't read it cover to cover, but I got the sense, you know, do you think that it's possible for a person now in our later stages of our adult lives to recognize what's happened in our past and change it now, or do you think the die may be too cast in some cases?
It is absolutely never too late to look at your mind, to look at your trauma, to look at your, your history from your childhood bond of attachment. And I talk about that in the book, how somebody took care of you by touch, by sight, by care, by presence, by playfulness, kind of like validating your perception of reality and yourself as a child from 0 to 3. And then that's a visceral human need that everybody has. And then there's authenticity. Being able to express who you truly are. Everybody's unique. Everybody has a unique personality. But without having to change your behavior to feel loved. We all do it. We do it as kids, with our parents. We do it with our friends, with our loved ones, in our romantic relationships, and it's okay. But as long as we know where we move from, and if you don't think that the inner child in you is still active in your adult relationships, you'll be surprised about what you read in this book, because I went to the best experts out there, and I said to myself, if I have access to this as a mental health advocate for the past 20 years, what's the point of keeping it to myself? I want to share this with the world so people can be known to themselves. And looking at the state of the world and all the crises that we're facing, if we don't develop more emotional leadership, and what is emotional leadership? Taking a breath when you don't want to, resolving a conflict and calm when you really want to scream and shout, feeling your emotions rise and being able to regulate your nervous system. They're not huge leaps to take in your lives. There are easy methods to come back into your own home. It's homeostasis in scientific language, but come back inside yourself into a safe, calm place. People on this planet are in their alert nervous system all the time, and they feel insecure. And when we feel insecure in ourselves, we are threatened by the difference of others. So take a look at the world right now.
You kind of get into so much in your book. I mean, you touch on your childhood. You talk about, different tips that people can consider. You're so vulnerable. You're so honest with your story. What was that like, really opening up to people? Because there are things, I think, in this book that people don't know about you that you're going to share.
So 20 years ago, when I was working as a newcomer in Quebec as a TV and radio host, I shared my story about eating disorders, and I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to get any more contracts after talking about this. They're going to think, oh, it's the girl who suffers from this eating disorder or whatever. There was so much more stigma during those days. Now it's changing a little bit, but there's no other way to teach than, one, by experience, and two, by a place of integrity and congruence and vulnerability and truth. And if I do this, I know people think that I'm in the spotlight, but my life is not in the spotlight. What people see is like 1% of my life. I'm a mom, I'm an ally, I'm a friend. I have so many other things going on and that keep me busy, and I want to make sure that I put my presence and give my presence where it matters most. So the content of this book moved me from within, from a deep place, and it's all I wish that it resonates in people's minds and hearts.
So you're a parent, we're parents as well, right? And this book, I'm sure, will help parents as well. I wonder how it helped you in terms of being a parent. I don't know if it helped you be more present with your kids, or just from the experts you spoke to, you learned a few things that can really help, especially in the teenage years.
So I have two teenagers, 15 and 16. I have a 10-year-old. It did absolutely help me. When I was doing those interviews, which lasted much longer than what you see in the book, I had to edit to come back to the essential. I learned so much about parenting, that parenting is not a role. But we're told in our society, you're the parent, you must direct this and that. But by letting our children be independent, by trusting them, by showing them the world, they can be ready for the world. We have to stop, being insecure in our own selves and wanting to control their environment at all times and trying to plan their lives. They need to take low risk, low costs in childhood, scorching a knee, going up that tree, falling down, so that when they get to the teenage years, the brain actually knows how to become resilient at high risk, high cost. It's kind of like
hugely important.
It's the natural development of the brain, and we're impairing it with our screens, with our sedentarity, with our lack of human connection. And human connection can cause the biggest trauma in one's life, but the beautiful irony is that human connection can heal it all. So
On human connection, and you kind of alluded to this, how the temperature outside, it's difficult right now for a lot of people. It seems as though a lot of people are angry, they're struggling. How important do you think that human connection is to kind of get us through this time in our lives?
Human connection is everything. Just right now in studio, when we're looking at each other, you pick up in 1/1,000,000th of a second on my facial expressions. So during the pandemic, people suffered so much, right? And we know that human connection is key to just calming our nervous systems. And if we foster human connection, we'll be able to not only bring people closer together, no pun intended, because it's the title of my book, but I didn't choose it by coincidence. I chose it very profoundly with much thought, because without human connection, we see what we can become sick, and playfulness and having fun together, because self-discovery and facing our truths is painful, and we're not taught to sit with our pain without feeling overwhelmed. So that's another exercise that we should, kind of like instill in our kids and tell them that, yes, life is painful. And there's also a beauty to that, because when you dance between the light and the darkness, between happiness and unhappiness, you kind of notice that we weren't meant to come onto this earth to be happy and pink and everything is fine. We came here to be conscious and responsible of our own individual growth, so we can contribute to the world and people can actually feel a sense of purpose.
Yeah. Now, this book, of course, Sophie, was written before your separation from the Prime Minister. But I wonder, the title is Closer Together. We know families come in all kinds of shapes and sizes these days. You speak still very fondly, of course, of Justin Trudeau as well. I wonder how your family is closer together while also there are parts of it that are apart in days. I wonder how that goes.
Beautiful question. Sometimes when you truly love somebody, you set them free somewhere on the path out of respect and admiration in different ways, even if it's not convenient. It's not my wish, but when things change, it's not the end. We are taught that we have to slay a relationship in order to change its structure. And Esther Perel, I quote her in my book, it's not true. And when we live in a society where success is marriage and divorce is failure and there's nothing in between, we leave a dramatic emotional burden on children, and it's unacceptable. We have to rise up to become more relationally and emotionally mature so we can actually get along together so much better, so our children can see that dynamic. And we're not faking it. We love each other. When I love with my whole soul, I loved then, I love now, and I will always love. It's not because a structure changes that love evaporates, and it shouldn't.
And you've gone through that separation in such a public way, and I could only imagine how difficult that is. Do you worry at all people are going to pick up your book and think, oh, there's going to be gossip, there's going to be dirt, there's going to be information in there that,
Too bad for the ones who want the gossip. I'm not a gossiper. I don't have time for that. There's truth in there. There's authenticity. There's vulnerability. I think that's much more constructive than gossip.
Absolutely. Listen, Sophie Gregoire Trudeau, good luck with the book, Closer Together.
And you have an event later today,
tell us about the event at the Well.
Yes, at the Indigo at the Well. I'll be in conversation on stage, and it's going to be an incredible evening, and people can get a book, and I can sign the book, and we can all meet on the path closer together.
Keep it going. Okay, thanks so much for the time this morning. Appreciate this. Thank you very much.
Pleasure speaking with you. Thank you.